highlights of the week's interesting stories, bringing you up to speed with latest happenings. If you are a lover of news, you will definitely love this package. The Week in Focus. The Week in Focus comes to you every Saturday from 8 to 10 hours, reviewing stories and happenings of the week from Sunday to Friday. Join our presenters as they discuss and shed light on some of the highlights of the week's interesting stories, bringing you up to speed with latest happenings. If you are a lover of news, you will definitely love this package. The Week in Focus. The Week in Focus.
Hello Zambia. Welcome to the Week in Focus right here on Light Television. Like always, every weekend we bring you top stories of the events that happened in the course of the week. Is it the news? Is it events? Is it whatever it is that you might have missed? Maybe you might. We're talking about diplomacy, local development, elections, energy, economy, sports, and many other events that might have happened in the course of the week. And so this is why we bring you that review so that you get to understand the stories that you might have missed in the course of the week. And so this is what we're doing today. My name is Martin Lutona, and so I'll be reflecting on the stories with you, the events that happened in the course of the week. And so to begin with, we look at from cabinet, and we're talking about the executive, that is President Hakainde Hichilema, who did meet the envoys, the diplomats, the diplomatic corps as well. And so he was visited, and so he had to greet them. That is a diplomatic visit, if you like. And so we can have to see that actually the president, in his greeting with the diplomats, he did stress the importance of peace and investment in Zambia. And so this is what he had to say, so that we get to understand all that there is. Shall we have a look at what this is all about?
2025 to us was a great year in many respects, and I will indicate some of those elements that make us believe that it was a special year to our country and our partnership with yourselves. We truly value the dialogue, the partnership, the cooperation with yourselves. Here, located based here or operating here, but also your capitals and broader members of your governments and the people that you represent. Let me give a few highlights 2025. Governance and social inclusion. We continue to advance as a country reforms in many areas, including in the area of the rule of law, reforms in the area of procurement, reforms in the area of the prudent utilization of public resources, which we are charged to look after. We've continued to push reforms in the area of policies, various sectors, laws, before laws, regulations, policies, regulations, I'm repeating, and then the laws. Very important to improving the operating environment as far as we're concerned, especially to anchor.
Yes, like you had it there in the clip, so we see that the president was actually emphasizing on the importance of peaceful elections in this year 2026, because we know that Zambia goes to the poll in August of 13. Will be able to go to the election and vote in that general election. And so the important thing that the president stresses there is peace. We want peace to continue. We want credible elections elections, as it were. So the president is a front runner to that, in that he stresses even to the diplomats that as a government they are apt to the game, that they want to ensure that there is a peace, and then before, during, and after the elections. And so the president is actually working on making sure that that happens. And so apart from that, he did tell them to say they must invest, because Zambia is a fertile ground for investment. And so this is why he needed them to come through and get to invest. But now there were responses actually from social media, different or mixed responses, if you like. While many praised the government for the investment and credible elections, others urged the president to focus on everyday economic hardships, faced by the citizens. Popular hashtags included hashtag peaceful elections 2026, hashtag invest in Zambia, and hashtag Zambia diplomacy. And so in a way of all that, President Hichilema in his message reinforces Zambia's diplomatic ties and election assurances as the nation gears up for August 2026 pause. And so let's look at what comes up in terms of major economic milestones. Zambia unlocks the final IMF disbursement, and to stay with us in that regard. So we're talking about the IMF and International Monetary Fund, where with at the beginning of the government of the United Nations Development Party, that is the UPND, did actually there were negotiations where there was this debt restructuring with the IMF, where the president did foster that. And so we saw that there was a bit of that lenience, that even as a nation we've gotten to where we are because of those negotiations. And so that is what has happened with IMF, and that we continue to enjoy a bit of relief, as it were. So maybe we have a look a bit on this in terms of IMF and the unlocking of the final disbursement. Okay, we continue with Week in Focus, looking at Zambia unlocks final IMF disbursement, in that this has been unlocked. So the story has it that the International Monetary Fund has released 190 million United States dollar to Zambia after approving the sixth and final review of the country's extended credit facility. So the finance minister, Dr. Stumbe Komusokotwani, said that the disbursement brings total IMF support under the 38 month program to about 1.7 billion United States dollars, a strong vote of confidence in Zambia's economic reforms and fiscal discipline. And so they are with the debt restructuring as well. So Zambia's economic fundamentals arrangement began in August 2022 to restore macroeconomic stability, so to strengthen reserves as well as protect social spending amid domestic and external shocks. So again, there were reactions there. You see that business leaders and government officials welcomed the milestone. Social media debates focused on whether this support will translate into lower prices, more jobs, and improved services. Trending hashtags included hashtag IMF Zambia, hashtag economic reform, and hashtag budget support. And so, as you see there, the grassroots, many would love to see this translate into lower prices, translate into more jobs, and translate into improved services. And that is what the government, I'm sure, has been working on, even from what the emphasis that we've been getting from the government officials. So the final IMF disbursement marks a closing chapter in Zambia's reform drive, as the government considers a success program to sustain growth and investment. And so as you see there, the macroeconomics that this must translate and then get to touch many common Zambian that is what they get to look at. Let's see what this has to say in more of this. We'll take a break. I'll be with you on the other side.
The Week in Focus comes to you every Saturday from 8 to 10 hours, reviewing stories and happenings of the week from Sunday to Friday. Join our presenters as they discuss and shed light on some of the highlights of the week's interesting stories, bringing you up to speed with latest happenings. If you are a lover of news, you will definitely love this package. The Week in Focus. The Week in Focus comes to you every Saturday from 8 to 10 hours, reviewing stories and happenings of the week from Sunday to Friday. Join our presenters as they discuss and shed light on some of the highlights of the week's interesting stories, bringing you up to speed with latest happenings. If you are a lover of news, you will definitely love this package. The Week in Focus. The Week in Focus comes to you every Saturday from 8 to 10 hours, reviewing stories and happenings of the week from Sunday to Friday. Join our presenters as they discuss and shed light on some of the highlights of the week's interesting stories, bringing you up to speed with latest happenings. If you are a lover of news, you will definitely love this package. The Week in Focus. The Week in Focus comes to you every Saturday from 8 to 10 hours, reviewing stories and happenings of the week from Sunday to Friday. Join our presenters as they discuss and shed light on some of the highlights of the week's interesting stories, bringing you up to speed with latest happenings. If you are a lover of news, you will definitely love this package. The Week in Focus. The Week in Focus comes to you every...
Indeed, you're watching The Week in Focus, and so we continue with what we're focusing on in terms of what happened in the course of the week. And so government of Zambia has released about 5.26 billion kwacha for the 2025 Constituency Development Fund, covering almost all approved allocations. And so this is coming because, you know, the way CDF works, there are ward committees and whatnot. And so then with those applications, the projects that were identified, and then they made applications to the constituency offices. And so now that disbursement has been done. So it's about 5.26 billion kwacha allocated to different constituencies in Zambia. And so that funding now, it means those projects that were stored can take effect, because there's a saying that money answers all things. And so if that money has been released, it means then that those projects that were started and didn't finish, or this they were on hold, and now with that funding, it means now the projects must go on. And so Permanent Secretary Mr. Nicholas Piri confirmed the funds in Lusaka, noting a strong uptake by local authorities to power community projects. So 2,985 projects worth 2.9 billion kwacha were approved. So nearly 48,985 secondary schools, secondary school bursaries. And so that we're talking about students, pupils, so which is 48,985 secondary school pupils on bursary that have been catered for, and that is 188 million kwacha in bursaries for the secondary schools. Then we have 47,071 youth skills bursaries, and that is to do with the skills like empowerment to the young people. And so we're talking about in excess of 709 million kwacha allocated or given to empower youths with different skills. We're talking about carpentry, is it mechanics, engineering, whatever it is that the youths are up to, because many youths would want to do maybe carpentry, they want to do welding, they want to do business, and so that has been accommodated in that CDF funding. And so empowerment grants for 15,827 groups. And so those groups, that is equal to 348 million kwacha in empowerment funds. Those are grants. And a grant is not a loan. So when you're given a grant, it goes like that. It's not money going back to government, but it's money that is given to empowerment, money that is given to the young people to get empowered as well. Now, in terms of loans, we've talked about the grants. The grant cannot be given back, but now loans. How many loans have been approved? So you see there that about 6,694 beneficiaries from the loans were given. And so that is equal to 421 million kwacha that is allocated in terms of loans. And so projects span from classroom, health posts, boreholes, sanitation, and rural roads. So we're talking about those projects that are common to man. Classrooms are for the children. Those that were learning under a tree, they won't learn under a tree anymore. They won't sit under. They won't sit on a stone to learn. They won't write on the ground because there are classrooms that have been constructed. So pupils will have to gather in those classes to learn. So that is an improvement in terms of education sector. Then the health posts, it means those mothers that were moving kilometers, miles to go and give birth, to deliver. Now there have been health posts nearby places where they can just walk there, they are attended to and go back home. So they won't have to go, unless serious issues. Those are the ones that go now to the many hospitals, and they go to the main district, or is it province or town hospitals. We're talking about the general hospitals, the level ones, the level two, whatever. Those are the ones that are attended to in that regard. So what is the reaction of the public? Local leaders welcomed the funds as a boost for grassroots development. So this is the welcome move, isn't it? And so the reaction is positive there. While citizens called for transparency and timely project execution. So transparency is where money is accounted for, because many times you find that the government has released monies, but money does not go to the intended project or intended persons, because either along the way it is pocketed, or along the way somebody takes it somewhere else, misapplied or misappropriated, and so a misapplication. And you find that there are meetings after meetings, and the money doesn't go to the intended grassroots people. People don't see it. It's like, where people with HIV, they're out there and they're suffering, and then somebody that is running an NGO of maybe HIV, AIDS, whatever, they are busy in a boardroom. Maybe they have gone to Siavonga, they are in Livingstone, they are having these board meetings, and meanwhile the person with HIV is dying out there because they can't have money for food, they don't have money for medicine, because somewhere money is misapplied. And so this is why, the reactions are that there must be this accountability. The government has released this CDF. Now let it go to the intended projects. Let there be no one pocketing that money. That money should go to the people that are deserving. And so social media posts highlighted real-life impacts, that is from new classrooms to boreholes, because a pupil will learn in class, after class, or maybe whilst they are learning, they are thirsty, they would want to drink water, and then they'll go outside, there's a borehole there, and then they are sick, very near, there's a community health post, they go there and have it, and then as they go home, this is a rainy season, they walk on a dry road because it is done well by CDF funding, as it were. So with most of the 2025 CDF now released, councils are urged to expedite project delivery before the year ends. And so this is what is happening there. So from development funds to politics, UPND makes history in Kasama. So in Kasama, in the course of the week, there was a mayoral by-election in Kasama. You know that Kasama is where in the north, and so therein was a mayoral by-election following the death of the mayor. That was, I think, PF mayor who died, and so now there was a by-election that took place. And so when that happens, we saw that Kasama went raid, if you like. There was a raid in Kasama, and social media, as it were, there is this like a cloud, a hose of smoke going up, which is in raid. And so there is an insinuation that Kasama has gone raid, as it were. So Kasama goes raid with a symposia. That is what happened. The UPND has won the Kasama mayoral by-election, and the seat has been taken by Mr. Bywell Symposia, defeating FDD's Peter Yuda, who actually Symposia poured 17,647 votes against his closest rival, who poured 14,302 after ballots from 218 polling stations were counted. Observers say the victory marks a political breakthrough for UPND in a traditionally opposition-dominated district. So there is a quote here by the minister, Chipoka Mulenga, who says this win reflects UPND's development record and stable leadership, with President Hichilema committed to inclusive growth, including in Northern Province. So Symposia previously contested the mayoral seat in 2021 and lost. So Yuda is a former ward councillor. That is, he was a councillor from 2016 up until 2021. Now, social media angle is that online discussions speculated whether this signals growing UPND acceptance in the north, using hashtags linking the win to service delivery and the 2026 election. Mayor-elect Symposia has promised to deliver on his campaign pledges as Kasama prepares for August pause. Let's take a look at what happened in Kasama and the aftermath of the mayoral by-election. Stay tuned. Indeed, that is what happened in Kasama in the by-election, and those of you that were in Kasama might have seen the hype of the campaigns and the different activities that were happening. And so therein as well, before that, we had actually the Tonse Alliance as well, Tonse Alliance election, where you saw Mr. Munduvile as well as Mr. The Vice President Chifumu Banda of the FDD as well, rising to the occasion in their host of a tonse, which is arguably, some say it is an illegal tonse, and they also call the other tonse illegal as well. So each one is calling another illegal, and so then there was as well an intent by the PF within to go and have that convention in Kawe at the Mulungushi, at the conference center, the Rock of Authority in Kawe, and then there was an injunction that was granted by the court to say they mustn't go ahead with that, because the other PF did contest that there mustn't be any kind of dealing. There mustn't be anything happening with the other camp of the PF. And so we see that the different groupings that are in the PF continue trekking the courts. They continue, they are in court in Lusaka, they are in court again in Kawe, they go different places, and so there is a back and forth, as it were. And many reactions, people calling for the unity of the opposition, that the opposition must unite, because a house divided within itself cannot stand. And so there have been those calls that there be that kind of unity if they must present themselves, if they must compete with the president who is the incumbent, they need to unite. If they don't unite, then it's a free for all. It's a free run for the president, because you won't have competition enough. So that is what the commentators are saying there, that there must be unity, as it were. Now, moving on, you see that there are new faces that emerge in the presidential race. Apart from that Tonse, there is then the NCP that unveiled Makebi Zulu as the candidate for the NCP. Of course, Mr. Peter Chanda of the Congress Party, New Congress Party, has named the former Malambo MP Makebi Zulu as its 2026 presidential candidate. So party leader Peter Chanda made the announcement in Lusaka, highlighting Zulu's vision for national development, democratic governance, and the rule of law. Supporters welcomed a fresh leadership direction, while critics questioned the NCP's ability to gain traction in a crowded political field. And so social media debates are focused on whether Zulu can strengthen the NCP's profile, or if opposition alignment will reshape voters' choices ahead of August 2026. There are hashtags like hashtag NCP 2026 and hashtag Zambia elections. So Makebi Zulu's nomination adds another dynamic to the presidential race. Of course, we haven't gotten a response from Mr. Makebi Zulu, because even if Mr. Peter Chanda did unveil Mr. Zulu as the candidate for NCP, Makebi Zulu himself has not given a response as to whether he has accepted that nomination, he has accepted that unveiling or that invitation. Makebi Zulu hasn't responded. So we wait to see, maybe in the course of the week, next week, we should be able to give you that response, if indeed he responds and seizes the opportunity that is given to him. So let's have a look at what happened with Mr. Peter Chanda. Stay tuned.
And I strongly believe that President Honorable Makebi Zulu, who is now announced as the presidential candidate for New Congress Party come 2026, will go sit down with his colleagues in the Patriotic Front and see how they can work together to ensure that we do justice to the Zambian people. So for now, I want to say that this was my special address for today. Thank you very much. And next day.
So that is in the political circles what was trending in Zambia in terms of the happenings of the week, as it were there. So now we shift gears to energy, and we change looking at energy. So Zambia launches a major solar project in Lusaka. So the 20 megawatt NRDC solar power project was launched, and this the 20 solar power project in Monali to boost clean energy and reduce dependence on hydropower. So you see there is a move from hydro, because in the past we've always had a dependence on hydropower. You have to think of Kariba Dam. Kariba Dam should produce power, that now powers the whole country. And so that which was established or developed many years ago, it developed a crack, and so we heard of there is a shortage of water. So now there is no water enough to propel the projectors, the engines to produce power. That became a difficult thing, especially that there was a drought that we experienced in the southern region for the years that are past. And so with that kind of drought, it means that the water levels went low down, and the people that visited Kariba Dam attested to that fact. And so even over the years, we found that even Livingstone, the Big Fours as well, ran out of water. It was dry. If you went to Livingstone at that time, all you could see is a stone, and it was dry. There wasn't water dripping. But now, because God has blessed us with the rains this year, we see that there is some water that is dropping there, and so there is some bit of infilling. And so we thought that there must be about 3 or 4 seasons to make sure that Kariba Dam is filled up to the capacity. So that now causes the government to think twice and say, how best do we ameliorate this kind of challenge? And so this is why now they came up with another smart energy, another approach to producing power that will be smart, and power that is dependent on the sun, because the sun is something that God has given. This is a natural gift. It's a natural habitation that God has given. So God himself blesses us with the sun, and so this sun now gets to give us power. And so that is why now the NRDC solar project that includes about 2 megawatts plant for the Natural Resources Development College campus. Construction began in November 2025, scheduled to complete by March 2026. So this year, in 2026 of March, this project must come to its conclusive end. So Energy Minister Makozo Chikote said the project will strengthen national energy security and reduce load shedding risks. The project is part of Zambia's plan to add 1,000 megawatt of solar capacity nationwide, that is, diversifying the energy mix. So it's where we are getting into diversification of energy. Apart from depending on hydro, if the hydro is not working for us, we go solar. If solar is not working, we go nuclear. If nuclear is not working, there is Mamba core production. You go the core way. And so different sources of energy. And in those years, we used to have generators, propelled by diesel or petrol now. So there are different sources of energy. What is the reaction of the public? Officials and energy stakeholders welcomed the initiative. It's a welcome move, isn't it? It's a welcome move because everyone is crying for energy. and people have been looking for energy because we want to do this. The welders want to weld. The students want to study. The different production, the manufacturing industries, they want to produce. And so with that kind of thing, it so happened that it was getting expensive because the cost of production went high because companies and industries had to invest so much in electricity in that they had to bring about maybe solar gadgets, they had to use gensets, and so you found that wherever you went, if it's at the mall, there'll be noises. And I mean, some of you attest to that fact. You're walking through the shopping mall, you want to buy something, and there were noises. And so those that are allergic to noise, they might as well stay away from the shopping mall. So many people that are against the noise wouldn't go in such a place. So you find that certain businesses were disadvantaged because you wouldn't do business in a noisy place, and so customers were staying away, and also the business owners were getting expensive. I remember going to the car wash and washing a car that used to be 50 kwacha, but now because it is solar powered, or is it because it's with a generator, you find the car is now you have to wash it at 150 or you have to wash it at 100 kwacha. Why? And then the justification of the price is that this is expensive because we're using petrol. We have to go and buy petrol. And so that is something that was a bit high. And so you find that at the moment, at least prices are being stabilized, because I mean, who would overcharge because they are not using a genset anymore, and so this now has to go normal. And besides, you see that the kwacha is gaining strength in that the kwacha now is able to stand up to the dollar and say, hey, dollar, sit down here. So you see that the value of the kwacha has gotten better in that the dollar is not able to sustain this kind of force coming from the kwacha. And so we give it up to the Bank of Zambia, the governor, the Minister of Finance for the work that they have done in making sure that physical discipline and whatever the macroeconomics that they put up, that there is that stability for a kwacha to stand up against the dollar. And so you see that even if you're going to purchase things outside the country, you'll be able to buy and sustain, because the dollar is not so much high compared to the kwacha. So users online debated whether solar rollout will finally end power cuts with hashtags Solar Energy Zambia and hashtag end load shedding. And so that is what we see, because at the moment, I mean, where at my place, we have power 24/7. There hasn't been that load shedding. We are back in the new days, back in the old days, if you like, where we had power through and through. Of course, commentators saying maybe it's because of the election time. Is it because of election year that we have power now throughout? And then the fear is that maybe after the elections, no power again will be a problem. So there are different insinuations, those reactions from social media and commentators, but we wait and see what that is. But of course, it's the right way to go. We're going in the right direction. So NRDC solar power plant marks a key step towards Zambia's renewable energy targets. And so next in business and consumer protection. We'll take a break. We'll be right back with you on the other side. Stay tuned.
The Week in Focus comes to you every Saturday from 8 to 10 hours, reviewing stories and happenings of the week from Sunday to Friday. Join our presenters as they discuss and shed light on some of the highlights of the week's interesting stories, bringing you up to speed with latest happenings. If you are a lover of news, you will definitely love this package. The Week in Focus. The Week in Focus comes to you every Saturday from 8 to 10 hours, reviewing stories and happenings of the week from Sunday to Friday. Join our presenters as they discuss and shed light on some of the highlights of the week's interesting stories, bringing you up to speed with latest happenings. If you are a lover of news, you will definitely love this package. The Week in Focus. The Week in Focus comes to you every Saturday from 8 to 10 hours, reviewing stories and happenings of the week from Sunday to Friday. Join our presenters as they discuss and shed light on some of the highlights of the week's interesting stories, bringing you up to speed with latest happenings. If you are a lover of news, you will definitely love this package. The Week in Focus.
You're still watching the Week in Focus right on Light Television Zambia. We continue with the stories, the events of the week. And so the past week, you see that there is a businessman, is actually a Chinese man that was caught selling counterfeit shoes. You know, he's selling Puma counterfeit shoes. You know, a foreigner who sells counterfeit shoes. A Chinese businessman fined for selling counterfeit Puma shoes. A Chinese businessman, Simon Wang, was fined 1,200 kwacha after admitting to selling fake Puma shoes in Lusaka. The Lusaka Magistrates Court held that Wang knowingly ordered the counterfeit shoes for resale. Police had seized 95 pairs from the Fortune shop. Why it matters is that the case highlights Zambia's commitment to intellectual property enforcement and protecting consumers from counterfeit goods. I don't know if you've been there, where you go to a shop, and then the shop attendant tell you to say, we have two products, different products. This one is genuine, this one is fake. So based on your price, or this one is stronger enough, this one is not strong. But so you choose which one you buy according to your money, according to your budget. If you want something genuine, this is how much you get it. If you have less money, you want it, again, you get this one, especially the auto shops. If you have to go to the auto shop, they'll tell you this spare part, this one is from this side, this one from this side, so you have a choice to make. The reaction: social media users uploaded enforcement action supporting efforts to curb fake branded products. You just see, Samsung, it's branded, but meanwhile it's fake, it's not original. Sony, they just put a wrapper there, and so if you are not careful, you'll be buying fake things. The case sends a warning to traders selling counterfeit goods in Zambia that you'll be found. From court to the pitch, we get to sports, that is including CAF sanctions after AFCON final chaos. Of course, you saw what happened with Senegal and Morocco there, where the Senegalese team did walk off the pitch. It took Sadio Mane to go and get back the friends, So the indication was that if all the players left the pitch, then the referee might as well have declared Morocco to be the winners, the champions of the game, but he never did. And so now you see that CAF has sanctioned Senegal and Morocco following and supporting conduct and sporting conduct, if you like, in the 2025 AFCON in Rabat. So Senegal was fined $615,000. Head coach banned for 5 matches. 2 players suspended. I'm sure those are the ones that were in the forefront. Then Morocco was fined $315,000. Players suspended, that is all of them. Club misconduct cited. CAF rejected Morocco's appeal. Senegal remain champions. That is what they said. So fans and analysts debated if sanctions were sufficient, some mocking perceived inconsistencies. Social media tags included hashtag AFCON 2025, hashtag CAF discipline. CAF aims to uphold discipline and integrity in Africa's football after a highly controversial final that happened in Rabat. In international news, UN faces imminent financial collapse. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has warned member states of imminent financial collapse unless contributions are paid or UN finance rules are reformed. Record unpaid due, that is 1.57 billion US dollars at end of 2025. Largest contributor, the US has not paid 2025 due fully, the dues fully. Crisis threatens peacekeeping, humanitarian, and development programs globally. The reactions are that international debate varies. Some call for reforms, others stress member state responsibility. Social platforms are active with hashtags like hashtag UN funding crisis and hashtag global cooperation. The UN faces a funding crunch that could impact millions of people worldwide if immediate action is not taken. And that wraps the news, that wraps the week in focus, that wraps our time together. I must say thank you so much for having taken time to watch this program where we bring you the events of the week. And it is the week in focus where we zero in on the week, the events of the week, and just